G'day YouTube, and welcome to Aussie Backyard Foods Kitchen. My kitchen's one of my favourite places to be because it's where I get to utilise a lot of the produce that I grow in my own backyard and turn it into something a little bit more special. I mean, I do enjoy eating fresh food, fresh fruit, fresh vegetables out of the garden, but let's face it, you can only do so much of that before you fill up, and it's nice to be able to preserve these foods. And one thing I touched on in a previous episode was just how we do that with honey, with jams, with cabbages. We ferment the cabbage. But today I want to talk about how we make fig jam. You might see a jar of my fig jam with the label clearly indicating what lies within. And you might think that I call it fig jam simply because it's got figs in it and it's jam. But that's not the only reason. It's actually an acronym for Flip It's Good, Just Ask Me. You might ask others as well, but look, I can be accused of not being very modest at times, but I do believe my fig jam is the best fig jam in the world. Just ask me. So the ingredients we need to make this fig jam: figs, of course, freshly picked preferably, but if you can come across some cheap ones down at your local greengrocer, get into them. You can see that this fig here is a perfect example of a fig that's reached premium ripeness. Not too many of these make it out of the garden into the kitchen because that's the best way to eat them. Then we need a small piece of muslin. That's for wrapping up the lemon skins and lemon seeds, which is where we get all the pectin from, which helps the jam set. 2 cinnamon quills, 2 vanilla pods, scraped and seeded, a kilo of sugar. I'm not actually going to use the whole kilo. Because I'm going to try adding a bit of honey, substituting a bit of honey for some of the sugar. Let's get into it. Firstly, I'm going to start by clearing some space on the chopping board. So I'm going to squeeze the lemons into our big pot. Squeeze each half at a time, then dump the skin into the muslin. One thing I forgot to mention is you will need jars, of course, to put the jam in at the end. I never throw out a jar. They're such a useful storage device, reusable, and you find usually once you pour that hot jam in, around about an hour after you've poured it in, you'll hear this little button on the top pop in, just like it would in the factory. And then when you go to use that, you'll hear, as you undo the lid, you'll hear the pop, indicating that you've sealed this and you've not allowed any bacteria to get in. So that's good on the shelf for years. Would probably use less lemons than what I'm using, but I find for this amount of jam, you probably want at least 5, 6, up to 10 lemons, because you don't want to underdo your pectin levels. There's nothing worse than standing here stirring for hours just trying to wait for that jam to thicken up. You're better off having more than not enough, because you can always pull it out once you've got that thickness, and I'll show you later in this video just how to test for that right gelling consistency that you want in a good jam. Now it's time to chop up our figs, and this is where your own preferences come into play. Some people like a chunky jam. That's me. So I'm not going to worry about chopping up my figs too finely. I find that a mixture of really ripe figs, like this one here, and you can see just how soft and juicy that is, and firm figs works all right. But the advantage with the really ripe fig is you can just throw it in like that and it's going to break up on its own. The firmer ones I'll give a bit of a chop to. The three main components you need for any jam is your fruit, your pectin, which we use lemons for. Some people add powdered pectin from the supermarket, whatever floats your boat, and sugar. I'm actually adding a few extra flavours like the cinnamon, the vanilla and the honey, just to jazz this fig jam up a little bit. Okay, all our figs are chopped and in the pot. Next thing goes the cinnamon sticks and the vanilla beans. Now, next thing is to bag up our lemon skins. So just simply fold the muslin over like that, form a bit of a bag, and I find these little clips from IKEA really useful for this application. Just seal your muslin off like that. Trim off the excess, which we'll do once I find the scissors. Found the scissors. You wouldn't believe where they were. I work with amateurs. But there you go. Perfect little pouch of lemons in the pot. Whack in our sugar. And a good blob of honey for a bit of extra richness of flavour. Once you've got all the ingredients in the pot, you turn your hot plate onto a medium heat and then just let it bubble away for a good few hours. Although I'll keep you updated a bit more regularly, probably at each hour mark. Let's just have a look inside the pot. Hard to believe that that's all going to be a nice sticky jam at the end of this, but believe you me, that's the way it'll work out. Okay, so this is how it looks at the 1 hour mark. As you can see, it's changed a lot. There's still quite a lot of liquid in there despite not putting any additional water. That's just all the water that was within the figs themselves. We've got to boil a bit of that off and as well release a few more pectins from the lemon peel for that to thicken up and become a jam. But we're well on track. I think we've probably got another hour or two of just that sort of low simmer. Just make sure it doesn't get too hot. We're probably on a medium to low heat now, and yeah, progressing nicely. So our jam's been bubbling away for a good 2 hours. But can we really call it jam just yet? Well, here's how you find out. Plate direct from the freezer. Get some of the liquid out of the pot. A few drops onto the plate and back into the freezer. Alright, so our potential jam has been in the freezer for a couple of minutes. Let's see whether it's ready or not. So when we tip it on the side, it shouldn't really drip. Not quite ready. Okay, so it's time to try again. Our liquid potential fig jam has been bubbling away for 3 hours now. So I've got a cold plate here. and back in the freezer we go. And don't worry, even though I would normally look for any excuse to throw some good homegrown veg into anything I'm cooking, that's not the case this time. That's dinner preparations underway. Alright, it's time to check our potential jam. Uh-oh, still a bit drippy. Gonna have to give it a bit more. Well, we're actually 4.5 hours in. I had to take a bit of time out to have dinner, so it's time to try our cold plate test. It's actually looking really good. It's quite thick even though it's hot. So get it back in the freezer for a couple of minutes and see how that turns out. So we've got our test jam out of the freezer. And look at that. That's what we're looking for. We're in business. Alright, so don't forget to pull your vanilla pods and your cinnamon sticks out of the jam. Of course, we've got to get our lemon bag out as well. And just bringing the jam up to a slightly higher heat because it wants to be at least 80 degrees when it goes into the jars, just to properly sterilise the jar. Righto. Normally I'd like to use a funnel just to make it a little bit less messy, but because this is so chunky, I don't think a funnel's going to work. So we're just going to use a big spoon. Oh yeah, that's chunky. Get it nice and full. The less air in it, the better. Do the lid up nice and tight, then turn it upside down. That'll sterilise the underside of the lid, and then the whole jar will be sterilised then, and it's good for ever, my guarantee. So now it's finally time to taste the fruits of our labours. I've buttered up a couple of pieces of toast in preparation, and I've got a jar ready to open here. Ooh, that's a bit stiff. There you go, did you hear the pop? That's the freshness seal. So it's test time. Or as they say in the toast taste testing world, it's crunch time. Flip, it's good. Just ask me.
How good is it?
It's good, I just said it's good. Catch you next time.